Welcome, everybody, to Monday night's empowerment session, where we're going to learn more about supporting children's health with adaptogens in our final part in our series, where we will be addressing colds, flu, and allergies. And for those of you who've been with me on this journey for a while, if you haven't figured out, this is something that is so important to me, that we do everything we can to give our children the best opportunity to get a good start in life. And not only that, but having information to be able to make the choices, an informed choice or decision for all our health needs, because there's different choices for everyone, and it's about getting that education out. So we're going to jump right in today and go from there. We're going to start off with a phenomenal testimony from Shelley Turner. And she's talking about her son here and how much he loves Vital. He absolutely craves it. Since he started on this, his restless leg syndrome is gone. His tics are gone. He's never sick anymore. His methylation issues have improved. His skin tone is improved. He's not so pale anymore. And if you think about what Vital does with the chlorophylls helping to carry oxygen, that means his iron is working better. Says he has no allergies anymore. Says he used to suffer from a stuffy nose all of the time. This is why she's such a soul believer. She wants to shout it from the mountaintops how these products have changed their family's lives. And I had found this testimony. I reached out to her to see how he was doing. And he's 9 now. This testimony was put out several years ago. And she said he's absolutely does amazing. He's continued with his amazing health. Every once in a while, he doesn't take the Vital, have to take it every day anymore. But if he goes too long without taking it, our inherited issues are our inherited issues. And so then he might get his restless leg back. She gets him right back on the Vital and it disappears again. How amazing to have such health changes. And this is so common. When I was reaching out today to find out different testimonies for the day, people were out busy enjoying life, but I got so many comments from people. In fact, I've got one right here from Becky Deckelbaum talking about her daughter, and she had taken her daughter in for a wellness check because she doesn't ever have to take her in for being sick anymore. How awesome is that? They just go in for wellness checks. And so the doctor was looking at her daughter and asked her when she was last at the doctor, when she'd last seen the doctor. And she says, well, like 6 years ago when we lived in Texas. And the doctor told her, wow, you are very healthy. She said her daughter takes it for granted now that she has health because she just doesn't get sick. What a gift to give our children to be able to have vibrancy and be out living life like that. So I do want to talk about symptoms of a sluggish, or what's also known as an overwhelmed lymphatic system. And that's because one of the things that we often see with the kids when they're young is they're going to have a runny nose, or they might be, they've got that cough, they've got the sinus stuff. So let's look at and see really what's going on so we can have a better understanding of that. So actual symptoms, when we're looking at, again, lymphatic system that's being challenged, right there at the beginning, frequent and or chronic respiratory issues. Yes, tied to your lymphatic system. Chronic sinus congestion. And remember, chronic means it's ongoing. It's a continual thing, as in so much so that you identify that this is, what your health is. That's where it is. It's an ongoing issue. Chronic postnasal drip. How annoying is that? As an adult, imagine as a child, or as the adult having to continually wipe your child's nose. Chronic coughing, another sign that the lymphatic system is overwhelmed. And we can also deal with hay fever and allergy-induced asthma. So those are direct symptoms of that type of a system that's overwhelmed. But there's also something known as secondary conditions, as in what else ends up going on, after this has been going on long enough. We end up with sore throats. And think about it, when that postnasal drip or the sinus is running down the back of the throat and people are trying to clear the throat, how acidic that is. That's because it's toxic and the body's trying to get it out. We have to remember when the body's moving mucus like that, it's because it's trying to get the toxin out. And that's the way that's what it needs, that's what it does. It serves a purpose otherwise. Earaches, that is a secondary condition tied to that overwhelmed lymphatic system. I know that I was one who always had earaches, and I had what is known in the eye as a lymphatic rosary. So I was born with a predisposition to issues that have to do with the lymphatics. And that also tends to go with blue-eyed people anyway, but because I had the lymphatic rosary, it was even more so. And I always seemed like I was dealing with earaches and or like swollen throat or tonsils. So right here we see a swollen lymph nodes as a secondary condition and tonsillitis. I knew that so well. That was just one of those things that I felt I was always going to have to deal with, and it was not fun. So let's look at the tonsils, because it's kind of interesting when you understand exactly what is going on here. And tonsils become inflamed when that burden of the irritants is so great that it actually overwhelms the lymphatic system in the head area. And the toxins inflame the very system that's supposed to neutralize them. And the same type of thing to a lesser degree with lymph nodes. So what it's saying is the lymphatic system is actually designed to help break down those toxins to move them out. But when we have so much irritation that the system can't keep up with it, then it backs up. And we know what that feels like. We've seen what it looks like. And too often the answer from the doctors, whenever we have someone that's dealing with ongoing, always having that swollen tonsils, is they take them out along with the adenoids. Well, we got to remember, those are swelling because it's telling us the body is overwhelmed and it needs some support doing it, not to remove that body part. So what do you think happens when we remove that part? Well, the issue is still there. We just have now lost the mechanism to easily assess or realize how much of an issue that it is. We no longer have it's like our gauge for our system saying, we have inflammation here, we have irritation, we need to do something to support it, whether it's drinking more water, whatever it is, there's multiple things. But when you move that marker out, then that becomes an issue. It drives the infection, what I've seen, deeper into the system. So let's look at it also as a traffic jam. So why might this area of the body, the lymphatic system, get overwhelmed? Well, it can happen from a couple different things. The main things being the kidneys and the colon. So it is an important thing that your children's bowels are moving on a regular basis. It is an important thing that they are having water to drink every day to help the kidneys flush and take that burden off, especially if they have ongoing issues with the lymphatic system, the sinuses, the coughing, that draining nose like we talked about. And like I've been teaching all along, we're talking about the roots, and that's what we're looking at here. What are those underlying roots? We're talking about kidneys and colon. As opposed to cutting out the tonsils, let's work at the underlying condition. So another thing to remember is that the lungs and the sinuses are the backup dumping ground for the lymphatics when the colon is plugged. So otherwise, when that colon gets backed up, because remember, the body doesn't make any mistakes, it starts pushing these toxins out in a different way. The body has got the limiting system, it's got the backup system, and it's got the backup system to the backup system, and that's what's happening here. So we need to be reminded again that the body makes no mistakes in this process. So Amanda Pratt had an amazing testimony as well. She was talking about her 4-year-old daughter. Said since she was born, she would catch every bug that goes around. And you guys have seen this in kids. You might have even had it with your own when they were growing up. She's talking about, she says, it didn't matter. Colds, flus, viruses, you name it, she would catch it. And said her immune system never really had time to recover from one before another would come along. Not only that, think about that as the parent. It just gets exhausting. And she says in here, pretty much it was to the point where she was sick once a month. So she started using some Solle and putting about a half a capsule of the Solle Clear in her yogurt every morning, and then making her popsicles using Vitamin orange juice. Her 4-year-old daughter went from being sick practically every month to not even having a sniffle. At that point, it was for 3 months. She says it may not sound like a lot, but it's a huge improvement. And often I talk to people about breaking the cycle. Here, the cycle was the child kept getting sick. It was becoming so repetitive that she almost felt like she was never getting a break. And so, by breaking that cycle, in this case, the 3 months is huge for breaking the cycle. And we get the opportunity to gain some ground to help her move forward with her health. Because remember, with Soul products, we are working at the roots always. That's how the products are designed. Can get symptomatic relief, but at the same time, we're getting in and working on the roots of an issue. So, another important thing that I want to talk about is the connection between stress and immunity. And I think this is really valuable because all the adaptogens that are in every one of our formulas. And well, let's just look at this. This is from my Adaptogens and Medical Herbalism book. It says during stressful situations, it is logical for the body to divert energy away from the immune system because immune activity is perceived as non-essential for short-term survival and well-being, unless the stressor is pathological, such as in the case of an acute infection. So right away, remember that body will kick into survival mode. So if there is a stress going on, the body will shift off of focusing on immunity to help deal with the stress, which does leave a vulnerability in the moment in that immune system. Not only that, if the the stress issue is chronic, which is different than pathological. Pathological means it's coming from within, like they're talking about this infection is coming from within. So the body's got the stress coming from being ill. But if we have a chronic stress that's, long term, like maybe they don't like going to school. And so every day is stressful for that. So the more that stress is going on, the more challenged their immune system will be. Well, at this point, this is where not only are we talking about the value of the adaptogens, but I have always stepped in whenever we had like a health issue or a cold or flu that someone couldn't get over, or we'd had long-term stress and I saw the person kept getting sick. And it is an ideal time to step in with adaptogens. And one of our great formulas for this is adaptable. And Angela Tikopah was shared this, and I love, love, love her analogy. She says, I picture life like a skating rink. As we go along skating, over time, the ice gets gashed up. There's gouges in it. And if we don't correct that, we're going to start tripping up on it and we're going to fall and hurt ourselves. So to me, I think of adaptable like the Zamboni of nutrition. It comes along and smooths out those bumps and leaves us with a nice clean surface to skate on so that we're not tripping up on all of those marks that happen throughout life. And that was so dead on. And she had gone on to share that the differences in her family's health, immune health, she directly tied at this point to adaptable and the impact it had on her life. Not only that, she knew that if her children had more of a stressful day, she might bump it up. She might give them an extra adaptable, whereas maybe normally they're only taking one a day, they might take a second one because she knows the safety of these formulas and how we can bump it up to help adapt to what is going on for that day so that we don't have that vulnerability in our immune system that makes us more susceptible for getting sick. So we have really creative people in our soul groups, and I found, have known for a long time, I have never personally done this, but making gummies for the kids to help make taking their stuff maybe a little fun. And every once in a while you get some challenged, kids that don't want to take it other ways. And there's some great recipes. This recipe here, they're using unflavored gelatin with 1 cup of water and a half a cup of juice, stirring it over medium-high heat, and then mixing in a packet of each Vitamin Renew. As you know, a lot of us use both of those together for children. Then talking about pouring it into molds or a square dish, and then they would cut it into squares after it gets cold when it's in the refrigerator. And what fun for kids to have those different shapes. I personally like the worms and stuff up here, especially if you've got a bigger kid that maybe needs a little bit more or a more chronic issue that needs a little more support. And then Carrie Norbert shared this amazing variation of the same recipe. And this was when her youngest was 3. And so this was several years ago, because at that point she couldn't swallow pills. And she came up with the idea with making her own version of basically healthy jello. She said she'd make a cup's worth of jello with plain grass-fed gelatin, a pack of Renew. She'd add a little honey, lemon juice, and empty capsules of Sulflex PI, adaptable, and probiotic Q. And she loved it. And Carrie says, those are some nasty tasting herbs in there. She goes, it's brown, but it tastes pretty good. And that's one of the reasons she added in a little bit of the honey as well, because she's right. Some of the herbs, like her in Solflex, which I created a new spelling for, that was fun. Anyhow, have a little bit of an edge to them. And if we've got a child that wanting to get these healthy items into them, you know what? As parents, we will figure out a way. And I just love Carrie's resolve and the solution she came up to. And guys, honestly, you can do this with anybody's stuff. I also was reading how someone had taken the complete and mixed the herbs in and then made those into popsicles. And I just thought that was a great idea. So at this point, I have asked Greg to share some on vital and allergies. So there he is. Greg, do you need me to share the screen with you?
Well, I could. Yeah, I've got a couple of slides to show today, Valerie.
All right.
How's everyone doing today? Hope everybody's doing well. Sure enjoy listening to Val. So let's see if I can find, I'm picking and choosing some slides here from a presentation prepared by Dr. Allison years ago. And I don't always use this part, but Valerie made me think, just in terms of a focus on allergies. We used to maybe say this more frequently. It's on the box. And I don't always talk about it when we talk about Soul Vital. But we felt strongly enough about these three purposes that we put them on the box: protect your core, enliven your body, and energize your mood. So really all of it has to do with protecting your core. But we were thinking a lot about those chlorophylls, those 4 chlorophylls that are in Soul Vital, 4 sources of chlorophyll. And enliven your body was really referencing quite a bit those 4 really high mineral content herbs, which are directly related to this conversation on allergies. And then finally, energize your mood, those 6 adaptogens. And though they do many other things, one of the wonders of adaptogenic herbs is that they help us manage stressors. They're metabolic regulators, and they're stress, I think in the same way I like Angela's comment about the Zamboni and kind of ironing out stressors so that we don't trip over them. That's such a great way of saying it. So let me just show you a slide or two about why this is so wonderful when it comes to allergies and allergy season. First of all, core health, when that is in balance, things like lungs and heart and all that immune system, which we know involves several things, right? And lymphatic system and digestive system and circulatory system, and so much of it in really the way we process food. So when we put this formula together, we really originally almost wanted to write all the messaging about strengthening the heart. But as we saw the formula come together and felt, sort of impressed to include all of the 14 herbs that are in here, we broadened it a little bit. And in broadening it, I think it aligns perfectly with allergies. For me personally, it's kind of 1A when you think about what am I going to take when I want more help with allergies, no matter what type of allergy I'm talking about. And I'll show you why. These are a couple of things that Dr. Allison included in her presentation many years ago. This one's interesting because honestly, you can look at the quote at the bottom, and I'm showing it in case you like to take pictures of them or whatever, but it in essence says that our level of stress management and how we manage emotional challenges in life is actually a bigger deal than perhaps anything else in our health, in our heart health, and in circulatory strength. And you think about all the things that affect that. To have this study talk about, the emotional stress in that way, to me, even, I guess, really more directly, even more so than say our level of fitness is kind of what the study said. I find that really interesting. And that relates directly to allergies, having gone through asthma myself. And here's another interesting thing. It's not just about circulation of the heart pumping it. I always love to show this slide because it says one thing. It gets us to think out of the box a little bit. Because heart hormones, what? Hormones produced by the heart, helping with immunity. My only point in showing this is that the body, sometimes we feel like we've got it all explained in science, and yet we keep learning things about the interconnectivity. And that's why when I listen to the way Valerie teaches, she'll never teach like a definitive, this does that. She'll teach, we've learned that this comes from that and this is related. And that's the way I feel about allergies. I don't look at them as something you buy a pill to fix. I'm going to just skip a couple of slides. Okay, these are just more to talk about all the greens in Vital and how those are the biggest factor in any kind of abnormal cell and immune, sort of those really powerful immune needs that we have. But here's the one I want to show you. Section 2 was called Enliven Your Body and focused on the minerals in Vital. Vital is chock full of them because of nettle, which also is a wonderful antihistamine. Think about that with allergy, a natural one that's not forcing or repressing a proper response, but that enables the body to have its proper response with in terms of allergies. But here's something that I wanted to show you. Yet another slide that talks about the direct link between minerals and our mineral levels. And this is just looking at 2 specific minerals, right? And respiratory conditions with allergies. It's directly related. And I think this is one of the big reasons why you'll see Valerie talk about, Bella Health plus longevity, because you're getting Vital in the Bella Health and then longevity, another huge mineral boost. And I'd add that to Vital when it comes to allergies. But Vital is so rounded, and that's all I'm going to share today because just in the interest of time. But when you look at the protective component in terms of immune protection with the chlorophylls, the mineral boost, which greatly aids the body in a proper response, then just go back to what she just shared about adaptable and all those adaptogens and how that can possibly be the most important component of this whole thing. We believe it is, adaptogens are, but it's hard for me to say that one plant is more important in a formula than another. But that is a key component I can attest, having dealt with allergies in a tough way for many years and not really looking at emotional fatigue with it and anxiety that comes when something starts and how much worse, asthma and allergies get. And adding these things into my life has made it so that for me, I still do sometimes I'll detect allergy triggers, but they quickly get normalized using products, and they just haven't gotten out for many, many years. So I think So Vital is so central, and kind of to me, it's 1A. If I don't know if 1A means like I start right there, and then there's some other, number 1 tier things too.
I agree. And if we look at what I was talking about with the colon and the kidneys, so Vital, we know, gets that liver going, which is going to end up resulting in bile salts being moved, which is going to make the colon move. Dr. Christopher always talked that lung health was directly tied to the colon. So when we see, and many people tell us that their colon starts moving very effectively when they start the Vital. So
yeah, and with the kidney point, Valerie, I have endless stories every week almost. We hear somebody with major kidney issues, and Vital is what they might do a full program, but they'll ramp up 3 and 4 Vital a day with, even that many packets. This is when they've got quite serious kidney issues, and they're able to normalize them. So both points of yours, Vital's right smack in the middle.
Thank you, Greg. So as we wind up this three-part series, the first part being on general nutrition, the second part being on mental health focus, different challenges, whether it's autism, sensory processing disorder, Asperger's, multiple different things. And then this one coming with colds and flu and allergies. There's a couple things I want to make sure I remind you of. One is the healing timelines. When we're talking about children, they have something really amazing that is going for them, and that is youth. Number one, they haven't had the issue. If they're only 10 years old, they've only had the issue maximum for 10 years, as opposed to an adult that could have had it for 50 years. Therefore, right there, you're speeding up your recovery from something. But also, children's their resilience is amazing. They don't require as much time to get the results or totally get on top of a health issue. So we don't necessarily have to take the same or plan on the same lengths of time in order to work therapeutically to help correct an issue. But also, too, the way I used to explain it before Soul, and now with Soul, I'm actually seeing it much faster, was if someone would get in and consistently and start making these changes and utilize a more holistic approach like this with the adaptogenic formulas for their health, then what I always told the parents was the first year, they might be sick the same amount of times, but we're going to start to build up that health in between. The second year, then they were definitely sick shorter lengths of time, maybe at maybe half as much time. And by the time the third year would roll around, then the kids were maybe once. It becomes virtually non-existent. And like I said, children bounce back so much faster. And so that was always exciting to me, and kind of gives parents a reason to stick and be consistent. And right there, consistency is important. As you've learned over the time with our webinars, that adaptogens continue to get a more and more encompassing response, because they end up being able to work on all the different parts of the body or the roots that are involved in the issues. And that consistency allows that, because we're not having to come in on a regular basis and do either a 911 approach or like allopathically coming in, putting a Band-Aid on it. We're actually working on healing the issue. And when in doubt, think outside of the capsule. We have covered so many different options and options for ways to help use these formulas for children, whether we're talking about the belly button or a popsicle or a gummy or drinking the drink, or it's all in there. Look at those. So you're not stuck with only the mechanism of the way that these formulas were put together, like as in a capsule or a drink, that's the only way that you can take them. And remember, to me, this is one of the most important things. You are impacting future generations, and this is an amazing gift you're giving to your children. It will be worth it. For me to see my grandchildren, which are fourth generation from when my mother changed things, and see the amazing health that they have, because I followed in the traditions with my children, and they're following the traditions with their children as well, is just, it just gives your heart peace. And also remember too, in fact, whenever I work with people with looking at their eyes, I'm being able to see 3 generations back as to the health blueprint that they're stepping into life from. So no doubt it will be phenomenal to watch those eyes change and that blueprint gets stronger and not as many weaknesses. Because trust me, I've had it where I've had 5 generations all in a row when they've come to me before they've started working on anything, and you can see it becomes the same issue one after another, because they didn't know how to get in and address the root cause. So you guys have huge opportunity here at your hands. So again, we have looked at multiple different formulas for the children. These are the ones that most people seem to be coming back and using a lot of. Now, I don't have the complete in there. Basically, you can use, most people are using, almost all the lines have been used different ways with the children. These are the ones that we have the most testimonies on in these series. And so that's why I put them up there, to kind of jog your memory about things that we've talked about. And again, all of our formulas are designed to have that root cause addressing that, so that we get a nice, beautiful, healthy tree or, healthy person coming out of it. So we will end with this quote: your genetics load the gun, your lifestyle pulls the trigger. Otherwise, just because you have the potential to have inherited certain conditions does not mean that they have to express themselves or express themselves as early or be as a much of a game changer for your life. Yes, for instance, I have diabetes all over both sides of my family and a lot of the issues that go with that. Do I have diabetes? No. Does my dad or mother have diabetes? No. Any of my children? No. We have addressed this in different ways. And consequently, we are strong with my parents. That whole generation from on down, none of us have had to use medication, whereas the generations before that all did. So remember, you get the opportunity to determine the expression of how the genes that you've inherited are. So next week, we'll be changing topics and we're going to be looking at adaptogens and health for the golden years. And I'm actually really kind of excited about this as well, because you're going to find out adaptogens can work for any stage of life. So I hope that you will be joining us next Monday at 6:30 whenever we do this webinar.